Okay, then it is time for work to resume on this timing belt change and oil seal change on this Volvo 760. This is an 88 model with a 2.3 liter B230 FT turbocharged engine in it, and got my portable canopy put back up. I kind of had to hurricane proof it, as you can see here, because this is one of the rare days that we have any kind of windy gust blowing, and it tends to, this thing gets away from you pretty quick if you don't have it tied down somehow. So I have it tied down, so hopefully it won't go sailing over the neighbor's house here. But here's what we're doing. When we last left off, we had this front cover, the upper cover, removed, and I was at a stopping point because you have a crank bolt which you can barely see poking out right down there at the bottom, which has to be loosened and removed to get that pulley off down there, which also is keeping the bottom cover from coming off. So there's a series of steps that we have to do. Well, I thought initially that when I ordered my timing belt components, I thought I could get away without needing this tool here, but as it turned out, it's really going to be indispensable for me on this. So let me show you what this is. This is called a crank pulley holder tool, or whatever you want to call it. Works for me. But the way this works is that crank pulley down there, it doesn't have any screws or anything in it, but like the old ones did. It just has that one bolt, and it has a series of slots in it. Well, you can imagine how this is going to work. These protrusions here go into those slots on the crankshaft pulley, and then it bolts down with the nut that you just took off, which is right here, there where the tensioner is. So the way this is going to operate is you're going to install this, and I've already kind of got it set up to go on, but it just slips on down there, and then it goes right there, and you come back and put your nut and bolt, your nut and your washer back on, and it doesn't have to be hugely tight or anything. Just kind of seat it, and that's good. And then at the bottom, you can see it's in place down there, and the objective is it's going to hold that crankshaft from turning while you loosen the bolt up. So the next step is to, guess what, we're going to loosen the bolt up, and then we'll get that pulley off, and we'll be able to take that lower cover off. Now, coming up, there's going to be a diversion of steps in this. In other words, you're going to have a choice of which way you go with this. If you do not replace your seals, like your cam seal, your intermediate shaft seal, and your crankshaft seal, then all you'll have to do is just take this bottom pulley off, take the cover off, take the belt and the tensioner off, and replace everything back the way it came, and you're done. Now, if you're going to put seals in it like I am, then you're going to have to take that pulley off, take the bottom cover off, put the pulley back on, reinstall this tool again, and then you'll be able to loosen your, with the belt still on, don't take the belt off, you're going to be able to loosen your bolt that holds the the cam pulley and the intermediate shaft pulley also, because otherwise there's no way to hold those. So you got more steps involved. Now, if your engine's dry and it's not leaking any oil, and you don't feel like the seals are in any need of replacing, then it's fine with me. You don't need to replace them. But this one blew one out. I think it's had a aftermarket seal put in it up here on the cam, so I'm just going to go ahead and replace them all just for peace of mind. So now I'm going to be messing around down there with that crank bolt, and so I'm going to use a piece of cardboard here in front of the radiator in case something gets out of control, and in that case it'll hopefully just go into the cardboard and not hurt the radiator, because this radiator is pretty new. So okay guys, I hope that instructional there, that little part. So let me get on taking that bolt off, and when I get to a point where you need to see something else, you'll see something else. See you then. Alright, crank pulley is off, and here's a close-up of this, how this looks, so give you an idea of what you got there. So anyway, that's how that works. And that bolt was in there. That thing, I had to use my breaker bar on it, so it wouldn't have come out with any strap wrench or anything like that. That's a fun thing to imagine you can do, but I don't think so. So we've got to take this cover off now, and I know you got a bolt right here, and then looks like you got one down here, and that might be it. I'm going to take those two out. Those look like our good old friend, the 10 mil. I think those are 10 millimeter. If not, I'll tell you what they are. There's the bottom cover off, and I was partially right on the sizes of those bolts. That one on the left is, on the center is a 10, and the one on the left side there on the outside of it is a 12. So, and this just comes off, slips off, but it's a little bit of a tight fit when you take that thing loose, take the bolts out. So be careful and don't yank on it, because this and the upper one are both made of what I call famous European break-in. Means this brittle plastic already broke. I didn't do it. The upper cover already had one of those sides broke off of it, so I may have to end up finding another cover for it. But this European plastic, anybody that owns these cars knows already, if there's one thing that the Europeans can learn from the Japanese, it's how to acquire and use durable plastics. Because in all the times that I've done timing belts on any of those Mazdas or Toyotas or Hyundais or anything like that, I've never had anything like that break. It's just on these cars. You know, if there's something to be known for, that's not the thing to be known for. So what we got to do now, I was telling you earlier, this timing belt actually looks pretty good and it's dry in there. But we need to replace it anyway since we're this far in here. But what we're going to do now is we need to put the crank pulley back on, and we're not going to torque it, we're just going to get it back on and seat it in the right position. You notice there's a key right there. As soon as the old camera focuses in on it, tries to. Any day now, any day now, any day now. There it goes. That little key right there, that corresponds to the back of this pulley. It's got a slot on it right there. So you want to make sure that you have that seat in. Just run the bolt back in. In fact, you really might not even need to run the bolt back in, but just get it back on there. I would. And then you can lock it down again with that tool the way I showed you, and you can knock that loose and knock that loose. And if you need to remember, if you're confused about which pulley is which, just remember that the cam pulley has 2 holes in it like that, and that auxiliary pulley has several. So you can always take a picture or something or make a note or what have you. So okay, let's do that and get these bolts knocked loose and get these pulleys off. Okay, then I have the pulley just temporarily reinstalled, and I put the holding tool back in, and I went ahead and took my breaker bar, which is that thing right there. I tell you, that's indispensable. I bought that at Harbor Freight. I've got every bit of my money's worth of use out of it. I'd recommend that to anybody who works on cars much. But went ahead and took that in a 17 millimeter socket and broke these 2 bolts loose, the one here and the one down here on this auxiliary pulley. So now what the procedure will be to what is the procedure? No, I got to take that pulley holding tool back off, take the pulley back off, and then I can take these pulleys off, and I guess we'll be able to take this shield back off here in the back and see what's going on with our seals. So let's do it. Once you get the crank pulley off for good, you need to go ahead and take off this dust shield. Remember which way it goes. The side that's got the teeth imprint like that goes on the inside. And what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and now I tell you what, let me go ahead and talk a little bit about cam timing marks. timing belt timing marks. And this is not an interference engine, so when I don't have an interference engine like one of these, it's not interference, then I don't worry so much about putting the marks in a certain position when I'm taking the thing apart, because people tend to get very confused about timing marks, and that's understandably so. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody for that, since I'm, you know, I've been doing this quite a while now and I'm experienced at it. But let me just kind of, and this is it's for any engine, but especially it's okay on the non-interference. Now if you have an interference engine, you want to be very careful about your timing marks, because it's not a freewheeling engine, so you need to go ahead and find out where all your marks are and put them on top dead center and line them up and make paint marks, etc., etc. If you ever watch Robert's videos on those newer Volvos with the 5-cylinder engine in it, he's done many timing belts on those, and he's shown you guys a whole lot about those, how to make the marks on them. So this one, it's got marks. I see, I just knocked something off. What was that? Oh, that was that nut. Okay. This one, I see it's got a mark here, and then it's going to have a mark on the it's going to have a mark on that intermediate pulley there, and then it's going to have a mark somewhere at the bottom down there. I know it's got a timing mark on the front cover, but I don't think that's the one you use. I'm not sure yet, but anyway, I'm not going to worry about that right now, because we're going to line up all those marks when we put the belt back. And like I said, let me say this again to not be confusing. This is a non-interference engine, so there's no way that you're going to tear the engine up even if you get the marks out of whack. So you want to do it right the first time, and I'm going to show you how to do it right the first time. But you know, don't be traumatized by it right now. If you need to do it a couple different times, it's not going to hurt the engine. So with that said, I'm just going to leave it wherever it's at, and I'm going to take the belt off where it's at, and we'll deal with the timing marks when we put it back together. So what I wanted to also say about this is, people get kind of confused about timing marks. You know, you read in there, they'll say something like, well, the cam turns half the speed of the crankshaft. That's true. And, you know, one time the mark goes around this, one time the mark goes around that, yada yada. But here's the way you look at this. Here's a mark right here we're going to use, I'm sure. I think that's the mark. Somebody's marked it. Either way. So when that mark points to wherever its corresponding mark's going to turn out to be up here, I think it's might be right there. I think that's it up there actually. But when it's pointing to that mark, it's there. It doesn't matter if you turned it one time, it doesn't matter if you turned it 2 times, it doesn't matter if you turned it 3 times. Every time it's pointing at that mark, that's correct. There is no possibility that that mark on here is going to point at that at the wrong time. You know, what I'm saying is, there's no, you know, forget about all this. It's on the exhaust stroke, it's on the intake stroke. That doesn't make any difference at all in this. All your job is going to be to do is to bring this mark around wherever it's going to end up being up here when we put this new belt on and time it. That's your job, is to make sure it's lined up there and nowhere else. I'll show you that in detail. So don't get paranoid about that. Don't think, well, I've got it up here, but is it on the intake or exhaust stroke? Doesn't matter. That's totally off the chart there. It has no bearing on this, so don't worry about it. Now, dual overhead cams, like you've seen me do cams on those Mazdas and the Hyundai, you know, that's a different animal. You have to do something a little bit different on those. And same deal down here at auxiliary pulley. When the mark's lined up, the mark's lined up. That's it. There's only one possibility. It's either lined up or it's not. Same with the crank down there. People get into this thing about, well, I don't know if it's on the crank, if it's on top dead center on the exhaust, or it's top dead center on the intake. Makes absolutely no difference. When that mark on the crankshaft down there is lined up against its reference mark, it's lined up. It's timed. That's it. You don't have to go around another time to get on exhaust or intake or any of that crap. That's something totally different. So don't worry about that. So these things are very simple to time, crank with a timing belt. So just want to let you know that, so you don't get worried about, you know, you think, well, I'm taking it apart, I don't know where my marks are, and what am I going to do, you know. Don't worry, I've already got that under control. So What we'll need to do now is we're ready to go ahead and slip this belt off. This has got a spring-loaded tensioner here, and got to remember how these come off, but I'll show you that clearly. So see you then. Okay, next step, and this is kind of a pain to do. It's not hard really, it's just annoying. To get this tensioner off and get the tension off the belt, you have to compress this tensioner spring right here, which means this part has to go towards that part. And I used a big set of channel locks, I guess you call them, and just squeeze it. And then when you squeeze it like that, you can put it, you do what's called, you pin it, which means you take what I took as some sort of little, that's an Allen key, but whatever is appropriately sized to go in that little hole right there. And this thing doesn't go back far, it doesn't compress very far, just a small amount. And then you put that in there, and that holds the tension off there. And then you can should be able to let me see, there we go. The belt off first on that one, that's right. There's the belt off. You're good for. Now I'm going to replace the tensioner on this, and so I'll probably have to remember how that goes on there and comes off. So anyway, we'll do that in the next step. Okay, there's the tensioner and the spring and the device that holds it, so it all just slips off of here. No big deal. Just be careful, don't let the spring go flying. So let's take those pulleys off and see if we can get that back shield off of there. Alrighty then, when I pulled this cam pulley off, something hit the ground, and turned out there's a bolt and a washer on the outside of it, and then on the inside there's a shim here. So that's what fell off, so don't lose that, and don't put that in the wrong place either. Make sure you put that on the inside right there. I'm predicting that'll probably have one too, but we'll see. Alrighty then guys, we got that other pulley taken off. There's no shim on the auxiliary shaft pulley. So, and then that shield back there just slipped on off, and we're to the scene of the crime here. And I showed you at the very first of this that looked like there was an oil seal up here popped out. This is the cam seal. Guess what? An oil seal popped out. You're not supposed to be able to take that out by hand. Now I've heard of this happening. Let me get a pic here and show you on these. I'll confess, I was kind of veering down the wrong path of this as far as what could have caused this seal to blow out. I was, kind of preemptively did the PCV system on these, but that's what's frustrating about doing this kind of stuff. You read into this sort of thing, and then people tell you, well, you need to use this seal, use that seal, and then you buy those seals, supposed to be the best seals you can get, and then you go back to people and say, oh, well, no, you don't want to use those turned out to be bad. No, we don't use those anymore. So I don't know, WTF. But anyway, this seal is essentially, if you look here, be very careful of this. See how I can just push it in by hand, pull it out by hand probably. See, I just popped it right out. You shouldn't be able to do that. That seal is supposed to be a very tight fit in there. So as I was saying, I kind of went down the wrong road with this. I was blaming that this probably had a bunch of PCV pressure in it, but it probably had some, and that's probably what just pulled that thing on out. So I want to get this and see what kind of seal this is. It's an L-ring. It's right on it. I have to hold my hand, I guess, so you can. Well, that ain't good, because that's what I bought, and then everybody comes back and says, there you see that L-ring. Everybody says, hey, you don't use L-ring. L-ring didn't fit right. L-ring links. You use this, you use that. So I've got L-ring seals from Germany. Supposed to be the good ones to go in it, but I'm gonna test this and see Somebody replaced that, I think. I see it. No, I guess not. Well, I don't know. I see some marks around the outside of that up there, like somebody's possibly worked the seal out there. But that's where it was leaking. You can see it had a bunch of oil down in there coming out. So I'm going to check that one down there and see how tight it is in there. And then we got to do the crank seal too. That timing pulley will have to come off of there, crank pulley, to get to that one. Those look dry though. I don't know what happened up here. I don't know if somebody did a timing belt job on it and replaced the seal and just didn't know, but yeah, that ain't good. You're not supposed to ever be able to push a seal in and out by your finger pressure. You usually have to pry those things out. So, okay guys, I'm gonna go take me a short break to have something cool to drink, non-alcoholic, and study on this and get my new gasket and see. I can't return them, I don't think, so get my new gasket and see if they fit any better. And for reference, the cam seal and the intermediate shaft seal, those are the same seal. So when you get a kit, you've got two of the same ones and another one from the crank down there. Okay, continue on.